Hello, New York. Hello, America. Hello, New York. Can anybody hear me yet? New York, waiting for someone from New York. You give it's New York entertainment, New York music, New York song. You could hear only through this YouTube channel, YouTube mode. In the dark place of kings, in the Broadway of dreams, New York. Can anybody hear me yet? Someone say type New York, please. Any New Yorkers? Are there any New Yorkers out there? Are there any New Yorkers out there? Can anybody? Can anybody hear me? Can you hear me now? Do we have to put that in quotations then from now on? Can you hear me now? Fake branches, bomb pop. No, don't call them fake. I'm sorry. I was just feeling saying fake. I always say that because then the C. Please read in the park place of kings, in the Broadway of dreams, in the days, in the nights, in the boroughs of life, in the boroughs of dreams, on the park place of kings, in New York, on the wind with all the towers seen. In New York, we begin within a park place dream. In the lights of Times Square, when this light midnight turns on the highway get there, on the pretty notes that we done in New York, to New York all along. Been the king of queens for so long, oh, aren't we strong? Though we from the boroughs cool, like a dream till we come along, so strong. Can't sing, so the New York. I can't get people from New York. Please, YouTube algorithm, please send me some New York viewers. I have critical New York information. It only feels like games. The ancient gaming system. The supplementary computing. Dear YouTube, you are being offered YouTube Ground. And my version of it, my pay, whatever you will pay me for YouTube Ground, will become a virtual person, half owned by New York, half owned by poverty in Hartford, as an owned system. Only feels like game /S. We can put the game /S of the pantheism /hyper pantheism before we get it set up. Dear Governor Lamont, please set up an account so I could direct people to it, and I could know more. You guys will know all the money and nothing, no scam. And I'll simultaneously I'll set up for Native Americans one that they could 3 natures of businesses, and we can give Native we could do things to train ourselves to make other people realize what's capable of being. Not because of this program, in other words, because we're following where how the value of the campus is identity treatments and value treatments and of the sciences of the republics, where it is present at all locations. And the breaching method originally and still knows. It knew that everyone will blame other things, others, and or themselves. What it caused and was keeping cost, negative value nature, progressive acts of nature, like predicate acts, criminal ceases natures, wrongdoers, wrongdoing itself, phrases and words plus values they knew we'd have to use, and they knew everyone would use them wrongly. So it was entrenched. So not one has wrenched out what was entrenched. That our founders wanted and needed wrenched out. What they actually left us recorded to demonstrate was, is, that, and how. Both the North and South were sickly involved with slavery. And it gave them the only means to counter roles with that criminally foreign influence. We had them entrenched roles with it. Now our founding parents wanted it. They have our founding parents blamed for it, and they have that self-value for a whole bunch of different motivations, natures, needs, interests, also relevant to where and how there have been uncharged but still recorded in between campuses of each age and nature, including intercities, what has been also interstates, and worse than internations, criminally foreign influence, including individually, including grouped, which is also relevant because that invisible was still discernible um, body of relativity. That way, mixed, invisible was still discernible. In other words, people's sense and sensibilities relative to their um, pacification at the end of, Jedi mind tricks and pretended legitimate, pretended for good or bad, to keep obfuscated that and how. One identity or volume is greater than, well, more finite than the force. And while completely as its value, where value is nature, and where nature has value, and actually where nature is value / value is nature, as sequence nature only because of where and how, more and more hyper simultaneous is making more of itself through the temporary simultaneous, whose trains with the sea, New York City, me, who hears the song, boxing is strong, I'll sing again, just come, just send my voice, YouTube, please. We'll put down New York, we'll field test YouTube ground too. Each city should have probably 1/3/3/5 identities of YouTube pages. We have to reveal with the just like they had to set up means to maintain stability and flow of traffic. For example, per where and how all identity ground locations, including suburbs, tactically natured through time. That was his measured, maintained, not even discerned, and compounded, and through counters to it too. As fact nature defenses of those counters, as timed, legal nature collusion. That is itself involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, all that to locations juxtaposed with the arrays of opinions originally still incapable of defending themselves and of affording that which our founders actually left us to discern and how and why. Be sad, but do not cry. Be sad while glad. Because once we admit together, it's simultaneously, that's a quality of fact, attributed to the quality and integrity of truth. It's the treatments of positivism, separate positive and negativism, separate exception nature. You don't make opinions by, in other words, people involved with uses of the town offices across the board of states. Vaccines. So the campus name is still criminally, stole and criminally re-engineered. Everything is used by the breaching method, measuring and maintaining itself undiscerned per its uses of all locations, per its uses of the identities of each age of correlation nature, where and how it was and is in an invisible but still discernible possession of it as that enslaved quality of fact-keeping nature, therefore incapable of defending, only heard opinions and convictions by passions and emotions regarding the nature of the law and regarding what came before and with and since the actual causes of and the actual involvements of crimes, and of way worse, even way worse than war crimes, for that method. That method which had manifest styles of motivations, natures, needs, interests, screening employed, but like witch trials, even if they were made up. No, when they are brought up, they leave out how slavery was simultaneous. That is where that is evidence. Correlation nature has simultaneously inherent active progressive means. The interbranch locations offensively have been preventing voice by offensively preventing uses of exceptions, exception nature to where and how they make positive and negative treatment simultaneously. Every time they make an opinion / conviction, their sequence shifts, styles, and juxtaposed with delusions as criminally foreign influenced premises treatments, qualities of fact treatment nature treatments. So YouTube ground can be and is a nature and a values plus value progression and value nature recognition module in the form as the subject / as ordered to them, led by that which is actually hypersimultaneous, that which actually reveals. And that's actually what being relativity to positive and negative simultaneously is about. See, we need to understand space, how its identity, space / existence, how is that its identity is matter, is not matter, and is the juxtaposition of the two. There is a trinity, so many ways, like always connected to everything, from even to the smallest finite detail. So this is why. This is one of the reasons why Jesus Christ, there's a picture of him with different sounds or identities of sounds relevant to the where and how, for example, the sound of the A, the alpha, the letter A, is written on the left side of his halo and on a picture at Yale on their website. And on the right side of it is a W, wall, it stands for. I didn't read that on the website. This is decipher of cipher. For example, known but simultaneously denied. Like, for example, people didn't have a quality of fact, treatment nature, offensively, including the religious messengers, which were messengers of partly, because the sciences were already criminally re-engineered. Nature was already demonstrating that, and is still demonstrating the sciences have been self-valued, tactical ulterior from their original course and function by why and how we are fact human nature, per why and how, both identity and so and value treatments have relativity to positive and negative simultaneously. They have relativity to the invisible but still discernible, that which is the value of the predicate as an identity of volume in every language, that which is the value of the subject as an identity of volume in every language. So originally, our founding parents in every country wanted and needed us to be able to use calm means, speak calmly, and report where and how the foreign and domestic were in collusion at all locations, areas, and states, including into sciences, as victims, but as victim predators, preventing offensively people from countering the foreign and domestic involved offensively, fabricating evidences at locations. All exceptions in exception nature are a demonstration of the same thing. That's why you have to understand how it is a recorded, protracted method exploiting what it sets up to exploit, too. Where and how it is abuses of each age of fact human nature from off campuses, but through on and off campuses already collusion having been self-valued. This has remote uses of the people next to everyone, including family members, including the word/value family. So you know how people are online and in the movies and and news programs and stuff with the FBI and stuff like that, and they speak about families because they've been making mistreatments of predicate acts countering. They were engineered doing this. So even though there was a hyper criminal enterprise, for example, that was sophistication before semi-ancient nations, before America. It was entrenched with slavery, North and South, sickly distinctly, and all those crazy laws against everyone, not just witch trials simultaneously. And that is, remember, and understand, discern, that is increasingly evidence, even whenever they bring up either of those subjects and they leave out the simultaneous value of them. Because together, looked at what they are together is a relativity to a breaching method as fronts, as multi-front roles, with that subject denied relativity to the fact-achieving nature of each individual group and altogether, the human science. Specifically, consciously, methodically, effectively, knowing that and how nature's complete identity, therefore, that its identity of relationship to itself, the one that's only going to increase perfectly, where and how its value is only increasing perfectly, where and how it developed an extent of complete possession over temporary/lasting space nature as its own, as a complete possession over, as a semi-complete/complete possession over space/existence. Now, the value of us being able to discern that too creates additional value here. It reveals evolution's fruits and gifts. It reveals the nature of an as care that brings evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere, especially fact, human nature oriented, design oriented. Revelation's oriented because it's the course of evolution. It's the identity. It's evolution. It's our nature's identity of relationship to itself that reveals evolution's fruits and gifts. It's an identity of ground too, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously as ourselves, but as an identity ground system like our own, no longer afforded existence anywhere. The differences in the styles of houses are all in demonstration of the same thing. Boxing. All the industry was put on rivers. All identities of sophistication were furthered with counters as war bodies, for example, as the interbranch, the private items, the prisons, all shared too, and fluent through that. See, everything used to hide that. Because all styles of logic consciously had replaced what was left for us to use, to speak for them, who left us to speak for themselves. They couldn't write it down. The databases north and south. The people that had to keep counter extorted, which means the nature of humanity. Its roles with and as those physical positions that were measured and maintained by the breaching method still entrenched. That was a hyper sophistication. It is a hyper sophistication. Even more than that, more sophisticated than nations grouped. That's why they have nuclear weapons and things like that. That's why their natures of peace are in collusion with that. When they make opinions or convictions, when they make opinions / convictions, they're simultaneously making positive and negative treatments, identity treatments, sequence treatments, simultaneous treatments, hyper simultaneous treatments that can't be defended in themselves affording. People not, anyone without anyone without identity theft, fraud, motivations, natures, needs, interests, outside of database locations, tied to fake things that were typed into database locations. The foreign and domestic are kept as victims, only predators needing to hide from and value, hurt, our means to actually have questions answered by nature itself at all locations. Even preemptively, they are shown means and needs to hide this by filming little tricks. Start pretending passions and emotions the first time people see each other. Connections between people who do that. That also have roles with our intelligence community with the World Trade Center attack and with locations like Sandy Hook, Newtown. They use crime methods of pretending passions and emotions because it's serious, and pretending they don't realize those are also people doing it who know they are involved with wire crimes. There are Wethersfield police with the name O'Neill, and there's a woman with the name O'Neill with West Hartford Schools, who's also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with wire crimes with forensics locations and with medicines and drugs crimes with the Leahy family and with police chief Cintron. And 1 years ago involved with various natures of drugs and uses of that too, because where and how they've been using the identity of the locations where positive and negative, where people can meet other people and they have needs to hide life progressions because they've been pretending people to fake locations, for example, as roles with juxtaposed natures of physical evidences planting wire crimes, for example, mail crime, email crimes, Facebook with the interbranch because of their foreign. They want people blaming themselves because they are kept with the foreign needed to hide the same sequence of fine active progressive lies with locations interbranch at in every other location further and further. So we'll examine this at 5 points. This is also the 5 boroughs. It's a perfect design that we can take manifest interstates and have, it's already a set up system. YouTube, all the other internet communications platforms. And see, social media is also recorded needing to be straight, and they're pretending they are 4 victims, but they have been sequence shifting by fabricating audio and video and identity thefts and frauds. Also, where and how they've been using the victims' advocates for identity thefts and frauds and evidence planting collusion with all different natures of crimes. And identity theft, fraud, slander, where they were lying about the nature of relationships to people because the only way they know them was in context where the interbranch used their kids and people associated with themselves to set up illusions and then have to lie about that, where and how they really interacted with people. In other words, then they want to speak about, they want to debate about their or whatever they want, or they want to just ignore things because they have employed people wanting privacy for to hide simultaneously. Really, why, and how they're in other words, everyone forced to speak through others is involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, relevant to where value is. In short words, the revelations of it are being prevented at locations. There are increasing revelations and names tied to the interbranch, switching names, forging names, preventing writing, pretending other with all exceptions, and using when this is brought up to them to stack more fabricated audio and video to databases, valuing that being and having been done. Boxing is fun. One song. Boxings or says or not. Betraying. Boxings. One species lives. Then gang. Who trains? See, New York, no one's around. Boxing is found or not. Boxing gets hot to build the warm. For warm. Boxing is torn. Boxing, the martial arts, and wrestling share an identity. The science of sharing identity, the idea of love shares an identity. And the identity they share, while they're as it is greater than all things and is more finite than them. It is only increasing identity of volume. And we could add the addition of being aware of that and of following that and of caring for it, actually for its system though. And it reveals a quality of fact, human nature already there. But that takes conjunction with its identity of relationship to itself and the value of Earth's yet distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to the rest of space nature. Where, for example, where a consciousness at each age of faith, human nature, can be shown where and how we are. 3 years being 1,095 days. And we are constantly adding to that 1/3/5 identities of sequence/simultaneous nature. All exceptions in exception nature are in demonstration of the same thing as length of IDs, though. For space nature transfer as the rest of our identity. We're only temporary. We're only to an extent automatically positive. Automatically, an identity has its volume, as its volume's identity of relationship to itself. Here. I prepare. Let's all prepare boxing. I'll teach you things. Boxings or says or not. We all will train. And we fight this way. When anyone wins, even if people lose, everyone wins. We let science have its voice, its means by the actual functions of emotions and of passions relative to the simultaneous, hyper-simultaneous. Otherwise, everyone's lying. That was part, and is part of the breaching method, knew that.